The distant howl of a coyote broke the silence of the Wyoming night as Zara Mitchell stared at the empty chair across the dinner table where her husband had once sat. 3 years had passed since influenza had stolen him away, leaving her alone with their 5-year-old daughter in the unforgiving wilderness of 1879 frontier. Their small homestead, once filled with laughter and dreams, now echoed with the whispers of memories and her daughter's frightened cries whenever a stranger appeared on the horizon. "Mama, I'm not hungry," little Emma whispered, pushing away her barely touched plate of beans and cornbread. Zara studied her daughter's pale face, the dark circles beneath her eyes telling the story of another restless night. Since Robert's death, Emma had retreated into herself, clinging to Zara like a shadow and erupting into hysterical tears whenever unfamiliar faces appeared at their homestead. The local doctor had called it nervous disposition, but Zara knew it was fear raw and primal that her mother might disappear just as suddenly as her father had. "Just a few more bites, sweetheart," Zara encouraged, reaching across to smooth Emma's honey-blonde curls. "We need to be strong for tomorrow. Mr. Jenkins is bringing supplies from town." Emma's blue eyes widened with panic. "I don't want him to come. Make him go away, Mama." "We need those supplies, Emma. Winter's coming." The harsh reality of their situation hung between them. Their root cellar was nearly empty, the garden had yielded poorly after summer drought, and the cow's milk was dwindling as the cold weather approached. The $20 hidden in Zara's mattress wouldn't sustain them through winter. Without help, they wouldn't survive until spring. Later that night, after tucking Emma into bed with promises that everything would be all right, Zara sat at the worn kitchen table, a single candle illuminating the letter she'd been avoiding for months. Her sister in St. Louis had been urging her to abandon the homestead, to bring Emma east where they could live in civilization, away from the hardships of frontier life. "Perhaps she's right," Zara whispered to the empty room. "Perhaps I'm being selfish, keeping us here." But this land was the last piece of Robert she had. He'd built this cabin with his own hands, had dreamed of the sprawling ranch it would become. Walking away meant surrendering his vision, admitting defeat. And yet, what good was loyalty to a dream if it meant Emma growing up isolated and afraid? The morning dawned crisp and clear, the distant mountains touched with the first dusting of snow. Zara had just finished gathering eggs from their small henhouse when she spotted the dust cloud on the horizon. A rider was approaching, but it wasn't Jenkins' familiar wagon. "Emma, stay inside," she called, instinctively reaching for the shotgun Robert had taught her to use. The weapon felt heavy in her hands as she positioned herself on the porch, watching the approaching stranger. As the rider drew closer, Zara could make out the broad shoulders of a man astride a magnificent chestnut stallion. His black hat was pulled low, shadowing his face, but there was something in his posture that suggested weariness rather than threat. "That's far enough," she called when he was within earshot. "State your business." The man reined his horse to a stop, slowly raising his hands to show they were empty. "Madam, I mean no harm. Name's Preston Wade. I'm looking for work and a place to rest my horse." He pushed his hat back, revealing a face weathered by sun and wind. Zara guessed him to be in his early 30s, with dark hair and eyes the color of summer sage. A scar ran along his jawline, disappearing into the stubble of his beard. "There's no work here," Zara replied, the shotgun steady in her grip. "Town's 10 miles east." "I've come from town," Preston said, his voice deep but gentle. "Blacksmith mentioned a widow might need help with her place before winter sets in. Said you lost your husband a few years back." "The blacksmith should mind his own affairs," Zara said sharply, though her arms were beginning to ache from holding the shotgun. The stranger Preston nodded solemnly. "You're right about that, madam. I apologize for the intrusion." He was about to turn his horse when the cabin door creaked open behind Zara. Emma's small face appeared, eyes wide with terror at the sight of the unfamiliar man. She let out a whimper, clinging to the doorframe. "It's all right, Emma," Zara said quickly. "Go back inside." But Emma remained frozen, trembling visibly as tears filled her eyes. Preston slowly dismounted, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. He knelt on one knee, making himself smaller as he addressed the frightened child. "Hello there, little lady," he said softly. "That's a mighty fine hiding spot you've got. My name's Preston, but my friends call me Prees. What's your name?" Emma didn't answer, burying her face in her mother's skirts when Zara moved closer to her. "Her name is Emma," Zara answered for her. "She doesn't take to strangers." Preston nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I understand that, smart girl, world's full of folks you can't trust." He reached slowly into his saddlebag and pulled out a small wooden figure, a horse, intricately carved. "I made this yesterday, thought I might meet someone who'd appreciate it." He placed the wooden horse on the ground between them, then backed away. "No obligation to take it, no obligation for anything, madam." Emma peeked out, curiosity momentarily overcoming fear as she looked at the wooden toy. "I should be on my way," Preston said, turning back to his horse. "But if you change your mind about the help, I'll be camping by the creek tonight, heading north tomorrow." Something in his manner, the respect with which he kept his distance, the gentleness in his voice when addressing Emma made Zara hesitate. Winter was approaching, and there was still the barn roof to patch, firewood to chop, and a dozen other tasks Robert would have handled. "Wait," she called as he mounted his horse. "What kind of work are you looking for exactly?" "Honest work, madam," he replied. "I can fix most anything that's broken, good with animals, and I don't mind hard labor. Not looking for charity, just fair pay for fair work." Zara considered him, her practical nature warring with caution. "I can offer room in the barn and meals. $2 a week for help with winter preparations, but I'll be watching you, Mr. Wade. Any trouble and you'll find this shotgun isn't just for show." A small smile touched the corners of his mouth. "Understood, Mrs. Mitchell, Zara Mitchell, Mrs. Mitchell, you won't regret giving me a chance." His gaze shifted to Emma, who was still half hidden behind her mother. "And I promise, Miss Emma, I'll keep my distance until you decide I'm not so scary." As Preston led his horse toward the barn, Emma tugged at Zara's skirt. "Mama, why is he staying?" Zara knelt beside her daughter, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. "Because we need help, sweetheart. Winter's coming and there's too much work for just me." "But what if he's mean? What if he goes away like Papa did?" Zara's heart constricted at the innocent question that revealed so much of her daughter's fears. "Mr. Wade is just here to work for a short while, and I'll make sure he's never mean to you." She couldn't promise he wouldn't leave. Everyone left eventually, one way or another, but she could promise protection while he was here. That evening, Preston took his supper on the porch while Zara and Emma ate inside. Zara could feel her daughter's eyes constantly darting to the window, watching the stranger with a mixture of fear and fascination. "He didn't eat all his potatoes," Emma observed quietly. "Maybe he wasn't hungry for potatoes," Zara replied, surprised by this first voluntary comment about Preston. "Papa always ate all his potatoes," Emma said, her voice small. "He said they made him strong." Zara reached across the table, squeezing her daughter's small hand. "Your papa was right about that." After Emma was asleep, Zara found Preston still on the porch, whittling another piece of wood by the light of a small lantern. He stood when she appeared, setting aside his work. "Your daughter's still afraid of me?" he asked directly. "Emma's afraid of everyone since her father died," Zara admitted, surprising herself with her candor. "Afraid they'll disappear too, I suppose." Preston nodded, understanding darkening his eyes. "Lost my own pa when I was 7. Different kind of disappearing whiskey took him, but I remember that fear, the waiting for someone who isn't coming back." "I'm sorry," Zara said, meaning it, long time ago. He gestured to the wooden figure taking shape in his hands. "Thought I might make her a whole set of farm animals." "If that's all right with you." Zara studied him in the lantern light, trying to reconcile his rough exterior with this unexpected gentleness. "Why are you being kind to her? You don't know us." Preston was quiet for a moment, his hands stilling on the wood. "World's been short on kindness in my experience, Mrs. Mitchell. Seems like a good thing to offer when you can." The simplicity of his answer disarmed her. "Well, thank you for the horse. It was thoughtful." She didn't take it, though. "She will," Zara said with certainty, "when she's ready." The next morning, Zara woke to the sound of hammering. From her window, she could see Preston already at work on the barn roof, replacing broken shingles with practiced efficiency. Emma stood in the doorway of her room, watching her mother. "Is the man still here?" she asked, her voice small. "Yes, sweetheart, Mr. Wade is fixing our barn roof." Emma padded to the window, peeking out cautiously. "He's up very high." "He is. That's brave of him, isn't it?" Emma considered this, her brow furrowed in thought. "Is he going to fall?" "No, honey, he knows what he's doing." Zara began preparing breakfast, setting out plates for 3. "Would you like to help me make biscuits for breakfast? We could make enough for Mr. Wade, too." To her surprise, Emma nodded and dragged a stool to the counter. As they worked, Zara noticed her daughter stealing glances out the window, tracking Preston's movements across the roof. When breakfast was ready, Zara called Preston in. He removed his hat before entering, wiping his boots thoroughly on the porch. Emma immediately retreated to her mother's side, watching him with wide, wary eyes. "Smells wonderful, Mrs. Mitchell," he said. Taking the seat, Zara indicated the one furthest from Emma. "Zara is fine," she replied, realizing formality seemed unnecessary with someone sharing their table. Emma helped with the biscuits. Preston's gaze shifted to the child. "Is that so?" "Well, they look like the finest biscuits in Wyoming territory. Thank you, Miss Emma." Emma didn't respond, but she didn't hide her face either, watching him with cautious curiosity as he ate. "I should have the roof finished by midday," Preston said, directing his conversation to Zara. "Thought I'd check your fences after that. Noticed some weak spots on the north side." "That would be helpful," Zara agreed. "The cattle from the Harrington Ranch broke through last spring. Trampled half my garden before they were rounded up." Preston's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Harrington, big spread about 20 miles west. That's the one. Do you know it? Passed through there once," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "Big operation." Something in his manner suggested there was more to the story, but Zara didn't press. Everyone in these parts had histories they didn't share. What mattered was the present, and Preston Wade was proving himself to be exactly what she needed, a capable worker who respected boundaries. After breakfast, Emma surprised Zara by asking to help feed the chickens, a chore that would take her outside while Preston worked. From the kitchen window, Zara watched her daughter scatter feed, her small head occasionally tilting up to observe the man on the roof. By the end of the first week, Preston had repaired the barn roof, reinforced the fences, and chopped enough firewood to last well into winter. Emma no longer hid when he entered a room, though she remained quiet in his presence. Zara noticed the wooden horse had disappeared from the porch, and later found it carefully placed on Emma's bedside table. "I think she's warming to you," Zara told Preston one evening as they sat on the porch after Emma was asleep. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine from the distant mountains. "She's a brave little thing," Preston replied. "Reminds me of my sister when she was young, cautious but curious." "You have a sister." Zara realized how little she knew about this man who had become such a steadying presence in their lives. He corrected gently. "Sarah died of typhoid 10 years back. She was just 17. "I'm sorry," Zara said, understanding anew the shadows that sometimes crossed his face. "Were your parents both gone by then? It was just the two of us." He looked out toward the darkened landscape. "That's when I started moving. Couldn't stay in that town with all those memories." Zara nodded, knowing exactly what he meant. If not for Emma and the homestead, she might have fled her own memories of Robert. "How long have you been wandering?" "Too long, probably," he admitted with a small smile. "Did some cowboying in Texas, mining in Colorado, even tried my hand at trapping up north. Nothing stuck. And now." He turned to look at her, his expression thoughtful. "Now I'm helping a widow fix her roof and wondering if maybe it's time to stop running." The directness of his gaze made something flutter in Zara's chest, a sensation she hadn't felt in years. She looked away, suddenly conscious of how close they were sitting, how the lantern light softened the hard lines of his face. "Well, there's plenty more work to be done before winter," she said briskly, standing up. "You'll earn your keep, Mr. Wade." He smiled at her retreat to formality. "I intend to, Mrs. Mitchell." The next morning, Jenkins finally arrived with the long-awaited supplies. Emma, who normally hid inside when the gruff old man visited, was in the garden helping Zara harvest the last of the carrots when his wagon appeared. "Mama," she whispered urgently, dropping her basket. Mr. Jenkins is coming, it's all right, Emma, Zara assured her. We need those supplies. But Emma was already backing toward the house, her eyes wide with panic. Before she could bolt, Preston emerged from the barn leading his horse. Morning, Miss Emma, he called casually. I could use some help with Rusty here. Would you hold his lead while I check his shoe? Emma froze, caught between her fear of Jenkins and this new request from the man she'd cautiously begun to accept. After a moment's hesitation, she moved toward Preston, giving the approaching wagon a wide berth. Preston handed her the horse's lead rope, showing her how to stand safely at the animal's shoulder. That's it. Rusty likes you see how calm he is. The massive chestnut horse lowered his head, blowing softly against Emma's hair. A tiny smile touched her lips as she reached up to pat his velvety nose. Well, I'll be, Jenkins said as he pulled his wagon to a stop. That the same little girl who wouldn't come out from behind her mama's skirts last time I was here. Zara watched in amazement as Emma remained with the horse, her focus on Preston as he lifted Rusty's hoof to examine it. Her daughter wasn't exactly comfortable, but she wasn't hiding either. You've got yourself some help, I see, Jenkins remarked to Zara as he began unloading supplies. About time, place was falling apart. Mr. Wade is just passing through, Zara corrected, though the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. Preston had been with them almost 2 weeks now with no mention of moving on. Jenkins raised a bushy eyebrow. If you say so. He lowered his voice. Folks in town been talking, though. Widow out here alone with a stranger. Might want to consider your reputation. Heat rushed to Zara's cheeks. Mr. Wade sleeps in the barn and I pay him a fair wage for honest work. There's nothing for folks in town to talk about. Just passing along what I heard, Jenkins shrugged. Harrington's wife is particularly concerned about your welfare, says she's willing to take the girl if things are difficult. Zara's hands clenched at her sides. Margaret Harrington had made no secret of her desire for a daughter, having borne 4 sons. The idea that she would use town gossip as leverage to get Emma made Zara's blood boil. You can tell Mrs. Harrington that Emma and I are managing just fine, she said coldly. And I'd appreciate if you'd bring my supplies without bringing gossip next time. Jenkins looked like he might argue, but then his gaze shifted over Zara's shoulder. Preston had approached, Emma still at his side with the horse. Everything all right here? Preston asked, his tone pleasant but his eyes sharp. Just fine, Jenkins muttered, suddenly busy with the supplies. Got your flour, sugar, coffee, and those seeds you wanted, $6 even. As Zara counted out the money, she noticed Preston's hand resting protectively on Emma's shoulder. More surprisingly, her daughter was allowing the contact, her small body angled toward him rather than away. After Jenkins departed, Preston helped carry the supplies inside. Town gossip. He asked quietly when Emma was out of earshot. Nothing worth repeating, Zara replied, though her cheeks still burned with indignation. Preston studied her face. If my presence here is causing problems, it isn't, she interrupted. Or rather, it wouldn't be if people minded their own business. She sighed, setting down a sack of flour with more force than necessary. Small towns have long memories and limited entertainment. My husband was well liked. People took an interest in us after he died. Took an interest, Preston repeated, a smile touching his lips. That's a gentle way of putting it. Despite herself, Zara smiled too. Well, I've never been one for coarse language. I've noticed. His expression grew serious. Still, if you want me to move on, do you want to move on? She asked directly. Their eyes met across the kitchen, the question hanging between them. For a moment, Preston looked almost vulnerable, the confident cowboy facade slipping to reveal something deeper. No, he said simply, I don't. Before Zara could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway, clutching the wooden horse to her chest. Mr. Preston, will you make another animal? For the farm? It was the first time she directly addressed him, and Zara saw the significance register on Preston's face. He knelt to Emma's level, his voice gentle. I surely will, Miss Emma. What animal would you like next? Emma considered this seriously. A cow, like Buttercup. A cow it is, Preston agreed. I'll start tonight. As October gave way to November, the first serious snow fell across the homestead. Emma's collection of wooden animals grew to include a cow, sheep, pig, and even a miniature chicken that looked remarkably like their ill-tempered rooster. Each night, Preston would carve by the fire while Zara mended or read aloud from one of Robert's old books. Emma, initially keeping her distance, gradually moved closer until she was sitting near Preston's feet, watching the animals take shape beneath his skilled hands. "Where did you learn to carve like that?" Zara asked one evening after Emma had gone to bed. "My grandfather," Preston replied, working on a tiny rabbit. "He made furniture, said I had the hands for detail work, but I never had the patience for larger pieces." "You seem to have patience enough," Zara observed, watching his hands move steadily over the wood. They were strong hands, calloused from work, yet capable of creating such delicate things. "Some things are worth being patient for," he said, glancing up to meet her eyes. The air between them seemed to thicken, charged with something neither was ready to name. Zara looked away first, busying herself with her mending. "Emma spoke about her father today," she said, changing the subject. "First time in months she's mentioned him without crying." Preston nodded, returning his attention to his carving. "That's good, means she's healing." "I think it's because of you," Zara admitted. "The way you've given her space, never pushed. The animals." "I haven't done much. You've done more than you know." Zara set aside her mending. "She asked me if you were going to stay for Christmas." Preston's hands stilled. "What did you tell her?" "I said I didn't know, that we hadn't discussed it." She hesitated. "Winter's nearly here, the passes will be difficult soon." "Are you asking me to leave before the snow gets worse?" he asked carefully. "No," Zara said, surprising herself with her certainty. "I'm asking what your plans are." Preston set down his carving, giving her his full attention. "When I came here, I didn't have plans beyond earning enough to get me through to spring. But now, she prompted when he fell silent. "Now I find myself thinking about planting season, about where the garden should expand. About building a proper corral for Rusty," he smiled wryly. "About Christmas," Zara's heart quickened. "That sounds like you're considering staying." "I am." His eyes held her steadily, "but not just as your hired hand, Zara." The use of her given name, rare from his lips, underscored the significance of the moment. "What are you saying, Preston?" "I'm saying that I care for you, for Emma too, and if there's any chance you might someday feel." The door to Emma's room creaked open, cutting off his words. The little girl stood there in her nightgown, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, I had a bad dream," she sobbed. "Papa was calling me, but I couldn't find him." Zara immediately went to her daughter, gathering her into her arms. "It was just a dream, sweetheart. You're safe." Preston stood, moving toward the door. "I should go, it's late." "No," Emma's cry stopped him. "Don't go away, please." The raw fear in her voice made both adults freeze. Emma squirmed out of her mother's arms and ran to Preston, wrapping her small arms around his legs. "Don't go away like Papa did," she pleaded, looking up at him with tear-filled eyes. "Please don't go." Preston knelt down, gently disentangling her arms so he could look into her face. "Emma, I'm not going anywhere tonight, I promise. I'll be right out in the barn where I always sleep." "But what about tomorrow and Christmas? Will you stay for Christmas?" Preston glanced up at Zara, a question in his eyes. She gave a small nod, her own eyes suspiciously bright. "I'm here to stay, Emma," he said softly. "As long as you and your mama want me here, I'm not going anywhere." Emma's face transformed, relief replacing fear. "Promise." "I promise." He brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "Now, how about we get you back to bed? I think those animals of yours need someone to watch over them tonight." To Zara's amazement, Emma took Preston's hand, allowing him to lead her back to her room. Zara followed, watching from the doorway as he tucked the blankets around her daughter, placing the wooden animals in a protective circle on her pillow. "There," he said. "Now they'll keep the bad dreams away." Emma's eyes were already drooping. "Good night, Mr. Preston." "Good night, Miss Emma." He stood, moving past Zara in the doorway. "Preston," she called softly when they were in the main room. "What you were saying before." He turned to face her, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen before. "I meant it, Zara, every word, but there's no rush. I understand if you need time." Zara thought of Robert, of the life they'd planned, and the dreams cut short. She thought of the loneliness of the past 3 years, of Emma's fear and her own quiet desperation. And then she thought of Preston Wade with his gentle hands and patient heart, who had somehow begun rebuilding what grief had broken. "I do need time," she admitted. "But I don't want you sleeping in the barn all winter. The old bunkhouse, it needs work, but it would be warmer, closer." A slow smile spread across his face, understanding what she wasn't quite ready to say aloud. "I can fix it up, make it comfortable. I know you can." She reached out, tentatively touching his arm. "Thank you for what you said to Emma." "I meant that too," he said softly. "I'm here to stay, Zara, for both of you." The weeks leading to Christmas transformed the homestead. Preston moved into the renovated bunkhouse, a small cabin just 50 yards from the main house that had once housed Robert's seasonal help. He installed a new stove, repaired the roof, and added a small front porch with a bench where he continued his evening carving. Emma blossomed under his steady presence, her fear of strangers gradually receding. When the Wilsons from the neighboring homestead visited, bringing a Christmas wreath and preserves, Emma hid for only a few minutes before curiosity drew her out. Preston's promise that he wouldn't leave seemed to have loosened the knot of anxiety that had gripped her since her father's death. For Zara, the change was equally profound but more complex. Having Preston nearby eased the physical burdens of homestead life immeasurably. But his presence also awakened feelings she'd thought long buried: desire, hope, the vulnerability of caring for someone who could be lost. Some nights, after Emma was asleep, she would join Preston on his porch, talking until the cold drove them inside. They spoke of their pasts, their losses, but increasingly of the future, a future that seemed to include them both. 3 days before Christmas, a blizzard descended on the homestead. The wind howled like a living thing, driving snow into drifts that quickly obscured the paths between buildings. Preston moved into the main house for the duration, sleeping on a pallet by the fire to keep it fed through the night. On the second night of the storm, with Emma safely asleep, Zara found herself sitting beside Preston on the hearth rug, a rare moment of privacy in the confined space. "Do you think the storm will clear for Christmas?" she asked, watching the firelight play across his features. "Hard to say, this is a big one." He poked at the fire, sending sparks up the chimney. "We've got plenty of wood and food, though. We'll be fine." "We," she repeated softly. "It's strange how quickly that word has come to include you." Preston set aside the poker, turning to face her. "Is it strange in a good way?" "Yes," she admitted, "in the best way." She hesitated, then added, "Robert would have liked you, I think. That means a lot coming from you." He reached out, tentatively taking her hand. When she didn't pull away, he intertwined his fingers with hers. "I know I can never replace him, Zara. I wouldn't try to, I know." She looked down at their joined hands. "But Emma needs a father, and she trailed off, courage failing, "and you." He prompted gently. "I need you," she whispered, finally meeting his eyes. "These past months watching you with Emma, seeing how you've brought life back to this place to us, I've realized I don't want to do this alone anymore." Preston's free hand came up to cup her cheek. "You don't have to." "I meant what I said to Emma. I'm here to stay." "But why?" she asked, needing to hear it. "You could go anywhere, do anything. Why choose this life? Why choose us?" "Because I love you," he said simply. "Both of you. I've been searching my whole life for a place that feels like home. I found it the moment Emma asked me to stay." Tears filled Zara's eyes. "I think I've been afraid to admit how much I've come to depend on you, how much I want you here, not just for the help or for Emma, but for me." "Zara," he whispered, leaning closer, "may I kiss you?" She nodded, her heart thundering in her chest as his lips met hers. The kiss was gentle at first, hesitant, but when her arms slid around his neck, it deepened into something hungry and needful. Years of loneliness melted away in the heat of his embrace, in the solid reality of his body against hers. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Preston rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since the day you pointed that shotgun at me." Zara laughed softly. "I was terrified that day, not of you exactly, but of what letting anyone into our lives might mean. And now I'm terrified of what it would mean if you left." He kissed her again, a promise sealed with touch. "That's not going to happen." The storm cleared on Christmas Eve, revealing a world transformed by snow. Emma woke to find Preston had carved a complete nativity scene overnight, tiny figures arranged on the mantel above stockings he'd hung while she slept. "Mama, look what Mr. Preston made," she exclaimed, running to wake Zara. The day was filled with Simple Joy's snowmen built in the yard, gingerbread baked from precious stores of sugar and spice, carols sung around the fire. As darkness fell, Preston disappeared to the barn, returning with a small pine tree he'd been hiding since before the storm. "Every Christmas needs a tree," he declared, setting it up in the corner. They decorated it with strings of dried berries, paper stars Emma had cut, and a wooden angel Preston had secretly carved for the top. As they worked, Zara noticed Emma had stopped calling him Mr. Preston and simply used Preston instead, a small but significant shift. After Emma was asleep, vibrating with excitement for the morning, Preston took Zara's hand and led her to the porch. The night was crystal clear, stars blazing above the snow-covered landscape. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small package from his pocket. "I wanted to give it to you privately." Zara unwrapped the paper to find a delicate wooden locket, carved with intricate flowers. When she opened it, she found a tiny portrait on one side, Emma's face, rendered with remarkable detail, and the other side empty. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "How did you manage this?" "Been working on it for weeks. The empty side is for a portrait of the new baby when the time comes." Zara's eyes widened. "What?" Preston dropped to one knee in the snow, taking her hand in his. "Zara Mitchell, I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. I love Emma like she's my own flesh and blood. I want to build a life with you, to expand this ranch, to fill this house with more children and laughter." He paused, his eyes reflecting the starlight. "Will you marry me?" Joy bubbled up inside her, bright and overwhelming. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Preston Wade, I will marry you." He rose, sweeping her into his arms and spinning her around on the porch. Their laughter rose into the night air, a celebration of found love and new beginnings. "When?" he asked, setting her down but keeping her close. "Spring, summer, New Year's Day," she replied without hesitation. "I don't want to wait." Preston's smile was radiant. "Are you sure? It's only a week away." "I'm sure. We can ride into town tomorrow, speak to the minister." "It won't be elaborate, it will be perfect," he interrupted. "Just us and Emma starting our life together." Later, as they sat by the fire planning their future, Zara felt a peace she hadn't known since Robert's death. "How should we tell Emma?" "Together," Preston said, "in the morning." Christmas dawned bright and cold. Emma woke them at first light, eager to see what Santa had brought. Preston had carved her a dollhouse, complete with tiny furniture and family figures. Zara had sewn a new dress and coat. Simple gifts, but Emma's delight made them treasures. After breakfast, Zara called Emma to sit between them on the sofa. "Sweetheart, Preston and I have something important to ask you." Emma looked between them, curious. "What is it?" Preston took the lead, his voice gentle. "Emma, you know I care about you and your mama very much, don't you?" She nodded solemnly. "You said you're here to stay." "That's right, and I want to stay as part of your family. I've asked your mama to marry me and she said yes." He paused, gauging her reaction. "But we wanted to make sure you're happy about it too. It would mean I'd be your pa now." Emma was quiet for a long moment, her small brow furrowed in thought. "Would I call you Pa?" "You could," Preston said carefully. "If you wanted to, or you could keep calling me Preston, whatever feels right to you." "Would you live in the house with us?" "Yes, I would." "And you'd never go away, you promise?" Preston's voice was thick with emotion. "I promise, Emma, I will never willingly leave you or your mama." Emma seemed to consider this promise, measuring it against her experiences. Finally, she looked up at him with clear eyes. "I think I'd like having a pa again." Tears sprang to Zara's eyes as Preston gathered Emma into a gentle hug. Over her daughter's head, his gaze met Zara's, full of love and promise. "We're getting married on New Year's Day," Zara told her daughter. "It will be a small ceremony in town, but then we'll be an official family." Emma's eyes widened. "Can I wear my new dress?" "Of course you can," Preston assured her. "You'll be the prettiest girl there." The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a whirlwind of preparation. They rode into town the day after Christmas, meeting with the minister who agreed to perform the ceremony. Word spread quickly a widow remarrying was notable news, and to Zara's surprise, offers of help poured in. Mrs. Wilson promised a wedding cake. The general store owner's wife offered to decorate the small church. and even Margaret Harrington sent a note of congratulations with a length of fine lace for a veil. "Seems your neighbors are happy for you," Preston observed as they rode home. "For us," Zara corrected, "they're happy for us, and a bit relieved, I think. A woman alone out here makes people uncomfortable." "Well, you're not alone anymore," Preston said, reaching across to squeeze her hand, "and never will be again." New Year's Day 1880 dawned clear and cold. Zara dressed in her best gown, a deep blue that Robert had always loved with the lace veil pinned to her hair. Emma twirled in her new red dress, excitement making her cheeks glow. "You look beautiful, Mama," she declared, "like a princess in my storybook." "And you look like a perfect little lady," Zara replied, straightening Emma's collar. "Are you ready to go? Preston is waiting with the wagon." Emma nodded, then suddenly grew serious. "Mama, do you think Papa would be mad about Preston being my new pa?" Zara knelt before her daughter, taking her small hands. "No, sweetheart, your Papa loved us very much. He would want us to be happy and safe. Preston makes us both happy and keeps us safe, doesn't he?" "Yes," Emma agreed, "and he makes the best wooden animals." "He certainly does." Zara smiled, relieved by her daughter's simple acceptance. "Let's not keep him waiting." Preston stood beside the wagon, dressed in a new shirt and his best trousers, his dark hair neatly combed. His face when he saw Zara and Emma emerge from the house was everything Zara could have hoped for: wonder, joy, and love all mingled together. "You are the most beautiful sight I've ever seen," he said, helping them into the wagon. "Both of you." The church in town was small but warm, decorated with pine boughs and red ribbons. To Zara's surprise, it was nearly full. Neighbors, townspeople, even Jenkins sat in the pews, all smiling as Preston escorted her and Emma down the aisle. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When the minister asked who gave this woman in marriage, Emma stepped forward boldly. "I do," she announced in her clear child's voice, "me and my Papa in heaven." A murmur of approval ran through the congregation, and Zara saw Preston blink back tears. When it came time for their vows, his voice was steady and sure. "Zara, I promise to love and cherish you all the days of my life, to be a faithful husband and a good father to Emma and any children we may be blessed with, to work beside you in building our home and our future. I promise to be your shelter in storms, your companion in joy, and your comfort in sorrow. This is my solemn vow." Zara's own vows came from the heart, unplanned but true. "Preston, you came to us when we were broken and afraid, and with patience and kindness you helped us heal. I promise to love you faithfully, to stand beside you through whatever life brings, to make a home with you filled with warmth and love. I give you my heart, my trust, and my future. This is my solemn vow." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Preston's kiss was tender and reverent. Emma clapped her hands in delight, and the congregation rose in a wave of congratulations. The small reception at the hotel was filled with good wishes, cake, and music from a local fiddler. Emma, overcome with excitement, fell asleep in Preston's arms before the celebration ended. He carried her to the wagon, tucking her carefully beneath blankets for the journey home. As they rode away from town, Zara leaned against her new husband's shoulder, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "Happy, Mrs. Wade?" Preston asked, his arm tightening around her. "Happier than I thought possible," she replied honestly. "And you?" "I finally found my home," he said simply. "Everything I've ever wanted is right here in this wagon." They arrived at the homestead, their homestead now, as the moon rose over the mountains. Preston carried Emma inside, tucking her into bed without waking her. When he returned to the main room, Zara was waiting by the fire, her veil removed but still in her wedding dress. "Welcome home, husband," she said softly, holding out her hands to him. He took them, drawing her into his arms. "Home," he repeated, the word like a prayer on his lips. "I'm here to stay, Zara, today, tomorrow, and all the days after." "I'm counting on it," she whispered, leading him toward their bedroom. "We all are." Spring came early that year, bringing with it new life. The garden Preston had expanded bloomed with vegetables. The repaired fences held firm against neighboring cattle, and the 3 milk cows he'd purchased gave rich cream for butter. Emma, flourishing under the security of their new family, started lessons with Zara at the kitchen table and followed Preston like a shadow when he worked around the ranch. By summer, Zara's suspicions were confirmed a new baby would join their family by winter. Preston's joy at the news was boundless. He immediately began plans for expanding the house, adding a proper bedroom for Emma and a nursery for the baby. "You know," Zara told him one evening as they sat on their porch, watching Emma play with the wooden farm she'd arranged in the yard, "when you first rode up that day, I was ready to send you away without a second thought." Preston smiled, his hand resting protectively over her growing belly. "I know, that shotgun was mighty convincing. What made you stay?" Really, he considered this, watching Emma, who was now making the wooden horse jump over fences she'd built from twigs. "I think it was the way you stood there afraid but determined, protecting what was yours." And then when Emma appeared, he trailed off, remembering, the look on her face, that raw fear. "It reminded me of myself after my pa died. I just knew I couldn't ride away." Zara leaned against him, grateful beyond words for his stubborn persistence. "Thank God you didn't." "God, fate, or just plain luck," Preston agreed. "Whatever it was, I'm thankful every day it brought me here to you." Emma looked up from her play, waving to catch their attention. "Pa, come see what I built." Preston rose, squeezing Zara's hand before joining their daughter in the yard. Zara watched them together, her fearless girl who had once hidden from every stranger, and the man whose gentle patience had healed them both. "I'm here to stay," he had promised that night when Emma was frightened, simple words that had changed everything. As if sensing her thoughts, Preston looked back at her, his smile filled with love and promise. Zara placed her hand over her growing child and smiled back, secure in the knowledge that their future stretched before them, bright, hopeful, and shared. In December, as the first snow fell, their son was born healthy, strong, and welcomed into a home filled with love. Preston carved a portrait for the empty side of Zara's locket and added a new figure to Emma's wooden farm, a tiny baby in a miniature cradle. "Our family is complete now," Emma declared, arranging the figures together. Preston and Zara exchanged a smile over their son's sleeping form. "For now," Preston said, winking at his wife, "but there's plenty of room for more." "One miracle at a time," Zara laughed, leaning into his embrace as Emma climbed up to see her brother. Together, they watched the snow fall outside, their home warm and secure against the winter, a family forged from broken pieces, made whole by love and the promise of forever.